Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to Making It. This show is about creating a successful life and what that means to my guest today, percussionist Kevin Ricard. I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way. My guest Kevin Ricard and I first met in the late 80s. We played together in a few bands and quickly became lifelong friends. His long list of credits include playing with Sting, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Celine Dion, Ed Sheeran, Jennifer Lopez, Kenny Loggins, Queen Latifah, Natalie Cole, B.B. King, Common, and many, many more. Kevin's TV credits include performing on American Idol for 11 seasons, Dancing with the Stars, America's Got Talent, the Oscars and Emmy Awards, the Grammy Awards, and the Kennedy Center Honors. Kevin wrapped a 3.5-year run as the percussionist for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in 2014. He describes the gig as one of the best jobs I've ever had in the music business. Kevin Ricard, welcome to Making It.
Hey, Terry, thanks for having me, man. Good to see you and good to be here.
It's always great to see you. We have a lot of history. I was trying to remember. I believe it was the late 80s, maybe the early 90s.
I met you on Arsenio.
Right.
The first time I played on Arsenio was with the Temptations in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
And you were in the band then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, that was a big deal for me being on TV, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
and then, with the Temptations, one of my, idols growing up, one of my Motown idols that, I grew up listening to. And then I got to meet you and Star and, everybody.
Right.
That show.
Actually, I had, I guess music directed with other guest artists on Arsenio. I was doing the Byron Allen show at the time.
Okay, well then.
Yeah, but we might have still met on Arsenio, like done it the same day or.
I mean, I know I did it more than one time.
Yeah. But back in the TV days.
Yes.
When we first started really doing the TV days. And it's one of the things I want to talk about today is our shared experience working in television. It's because it's a unique opportunity and challenge.
It is.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I wanted to ask you a question first, Kevin, which is, how would you describe or define yourself as both a musician and an artist? Because you are both. You have a new album out.
Right. Well, wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a kind of I'm a musician who always wanted to be a working musician. Wasn't really interested in being famous or anything like that. I just wanted to work, be able to provide for my family, and do a good job at wherever I ended up, wherever I stepped into along the path. And as an artist, I guess I just want to share music that is, I don't know, how do you say, kind of denigrated or not, or looked down upon sometimes, or put in another classic. It's not as important as quote unquote pop music. And these are musics that really have affected me over many years. And I just want to share them in the best way that I can, to make people more interested in this music and to understand that this is the music that makes all music that we currently call pop music. So, it's really kind of honoring the sources, honoring the ancestors that all of us come from and all of us have listened to. But, as years go on, you see pop music becoming more and more myopic. And if you don't fit into this very, very narrow lane, then you're discounted. So you, oh, it's just a world artist. Oh, that's just an Americana artist. So that's just a Brazilian artist, whatever. And the thing is all these musics made what is currently pop music.
Right.
So, so I just want to always honor that in whatever kind of thing that I end up creating. And I've been fortunate to be in situations where I could do that. And particularly with this new record, which really is kind of a statement about that, it's a statement in many ways, historical statement, artistic statement, a political statement in a lot of ways. And so I just want to be able to share that and get maybe have people look at this a different way rather than just from the pop music lens and then being forced out of that lane into, oh, hey, that music's kind of cool over there, rather than just having wide ears and eyes and being accepting and receptive of music from all over the world as if it were just as important as pop music. And to me, it is, so that's kind of my statement as an artist.
And oftentimes people say, especially to artists and to us also as musicians, who are there to serve other people's music as well,
right,
and to serve their story. We've often been told the phrase, stay in your lane, but
right.
the lane is wide.
Yeah.
The lane that you're talking about is wide. The lane that has informed our path of becoming musicians,
right,
through indigenous and cultural music and global music,
exactly,
has in a beautiful way infiltrated into our very being, of
yeah,
what we do and why we do it.
right. And understanding that, that phrase that you say about staying in your lane, yeah, that we have to appreciate that part of it too, because of the many, places that we go musically in the course of a year. You and I may play with three or four different, five or six different styles of music, and even you might play something that you're not familiar with that you're going to dive into, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is the most amazing music I've ever heard. So, but you have to understand that you are there to serve the music, especially when you get called by someone to be an artist, to be a musician, to make to realize their musical dream. You have to be able to understand that you're there for that and not for you. So there are those times that you got to understand that, and other times where people rely on you to bring some of that knowledge that you may bring, saying, hey, what do you think? How should we approach this? And I love those opportunities as well. They're all good. They're all good. Hey, listen, the worst day of playing music is better than any job I've ever had, delivering flowers, washing dishes, bussing tables,
Parking cars, et cetera, et cetera.
the whole thing,
Many of our guests, yeah.
even on the worst day with the thing you wish you could just, you're looking at your clock, when is this gig going to be over? Hey, you're getting paid to play music. What a blessing that is, and how few of us get to do that.
Yeah.
So you got to understand both sides of that equation, Bring yourself to serve the music, but when called upon to bring more of what you bring as an artist into your music, like into a job situation, then know when to do that too, and know how to navigate that. And kind of keeps you, I guess, people remember that, and they'll call you back.
Right.
And that's everything for us, is the callback,
Right. The callback, our reputation is built on, it's built on a world-class level of musicianship, but it's also built on an integrity and a curiosity and a open-heartedness and willingness to always improve and grow our skills and our palette.
Right.
Not just what we play, but what we embrace.
Right. So those two things go hand in hand. I mean, you're bringing all that music stuff, but then what you just said, because without the two of them together, you're not going to go forward. And
Right.
You can't. People are going to say, the guy can play his behind off, but man, he's kind of a pain to be around.
Yeah.
Or ever. You don't ever want anybody to say that, especially if they really like your playing. But I like that guy's playing, but I just can't call him back.
Right. Yeah. The
You
hang factor.
know, yeah, that you got to be able to just be present and hang and move with the things that are happening around you, and that helps to move you forward in this business. So,
So basically, what you're saying, and I absolutely agree with you, is that it's not just being a great technician, but it's also being a great human.
yes, both those things have to happen at the same time, really,
Hmm.
for you to quote unquote make it,
It's
And
true.
sometimes people make it, they're kind of jerks and
They are, and I always marvel at that. How did they step to the front of the line? How did their arrogance or their jerkness be interpreted as confidence?
right. Yeah. I mean, it happens,
Yeah, it does. We've seen it.
well, yeah, repeatedly. I
But
think,
I do. It's a head scratcher for me.
yeah, yeah, me too. I just can't let myself, I, it's not in my nature to be that way. And I don't want anybody looking at me cross-eyed, like, man, what is wrong with this dude?
Mhm.
So, you know, doesn't mean you don't speak your mind and doesn't mean you're not honest with people, but you have to be a bit of a politician in this business.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. Hey, since we're talking about your album today, as well as life and musicianship and art and creativity and all the things that you and I both love, um, I want to just give a little taste of a piece of music from your album, The Crossing. So let's start with that, and then we'll talk. There's so much to talk about, but this is Bamako,
Okay.
The Bamako bounce.
Yeah.
Bamako is the capital and largest city of Mali, Africa. And this song starts off with Ray Montero's lone trumpet, which I love, going into a second line groove.
Party.
That just makes me happy.
Yeah. Awful music, man.
Yeah, it truly is. It truly, truly is.
Mm.
So tell me a little bit about that song, and then I want to ask you about how really you came to percussion. The backstory on that.
Sure. Well, the title. Let's start with the title. The title, Bamako
Cross.
Bounce. I read. There's two things there. Bounce is a style of music in New Orleans, more pop style, the more modern pop style. That's not what this song is. It's not a bounce song necessarily, but it's just honoring New Orleans, from which, Louisiana, from where my family comes. So I had to start there on the record. So that's what's the first song. But Bamako is, like you said, the capital of Mali. Uh, and in the song, there are two instruments that are being used, one of which is called an ngoni, which is a little stringed instrument, a predecessor of the banjo. One of the grandfathers of the banjo that we know today. It's got a drop string like a banjo, and it's got a skin over the resonating head, which is a gourd, and a stick coming out with the strings. So that's one instrument that's playing there, and another instrument that's playing there is called the bolon, Bolon, and that's kind of a bassier sound, and it's a 3 or 4 string instrument from Mali as well, not just Mali, but that area. And those two instruments are kind of cooking underneath this whole track. So you'll hear them like isolated in a couple of breakdowns, but so that's why I called it the Bamako bounce.
I
And
love, Kevin, that you said cooking, because it is like percolating and boiling, and slow simmer,
exactly,
into a boil. It's great.
that's the
It is
idea.
cooking.
It's like a crawfish boiled.
That's right. It's an etouffee.
Exactly. Which I grew up eating, moms make shrimp etouffee,
Mhm.
crawfish, all that. So, yeah, so I wanted to, the other connection there is the fact that during the time of enslavement of human beings on this earth, a lot of people from that part of Africa, West Africa, ended up in Louisiana from the what we call Mandingo, but the Mande, community. There was a lot of people that ended up in Louisiana, Senegal, Mali, Gambia, uh, because one of the things they were growing in that area was rice, and ancient Senegalese people had a deep knowledge of growing rice going back millennia. So of course they brought them over here to run the rice plantations. Of course, they were also doing sugar cane and all these other things, but that influence is deep in New Orleans. So there's a lot of that influence. So that kind of played into the name of the song, and uh, just the vibe of the song because of the two instruments that were playing on there. So yeah, there's all that, and then I got a bass player from New Orleans on there, Chris Severin, who's killing it.
Mhm.
Uh, I did all the other horn programming and keyboards and all the percussion and the vocals as well. And then there's some samples from really old blues records that I would take and retune and break up and just drop that in there stuff just to add it, give it some flavor. So it's just a bunch of seasoning, put
Right, hence the gumbo. Yeah.
exactly. Gumbo is percolating
A
for sure.
little pinch of this and a little pinch of that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of I had to start the record there because of the album title, The Crossing, which talks about the crossing of all the people that came from Europe, came from the Caribbean, came from West Africa, came from South America,
Yeah.
that the indigenous people that were here that came into this country and made what we call America, quote unquote. Uh, but there's a deep influence of African culture and Afro-Caribbean culture, Afro-Brazilian culture, that we really haven't even delved into all the deep roots that influence American music, and
Mhm.
especially in Louisiana, which was a big port city for the Caribbean. It was the northernmost Caribbean port in the Spanish Empire.
Mhm.
So that's kind of why the crossing, because all those crossings across the Atlantic, across the Caribbean, across the United States, and the Great Migration, which brought both my parents to Los Angeles. So that's kind of like the concept of the record.
There's a beautiful description of the record, and I believe that I read this on your website. And it says the crossing is an attempt to pay homage to all the journeys, both voluntary and involuntary, that continue to shape and influence humanity and culture on this planet. The musical gifts that were brought in those journeys have moved me for as long as I can remember.
Mm. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember as a little kid just being blown away by music that my brothers had. They were jazz fiends. So I remember growing up like as a little, probably 6, 7 year old, digging My Favorite Things by John Coltrane. And it was like, it would take me somewhere. And I didn't know what that meant, but I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then my brother had Latin jazz. He had Willie Bobo and Cal Jader and Mongo Santa Maria. They had uh, uh, Sergio Mendes. Then my brother moved to Europe and traveled extensive. My oldest brother moved to Europe and traveled through 15 or 17 countries in Africa and was sending me back tapes with the most amazing music I've ever heard. And I'm a little kid listening to this stuff on a cassette.
Mhm.
And even before cassettes, he would send reel to reels with that stuff. And he'd talk to us, tell us what he was up to, and then play this music. I was like, as a kid, that went in deep. So yeah, it was very influential in me becoming who I am, as well as my brothers' Motown and doo-wop collections, my other brothers.
So what was the specific story behind becoming a percussionist versus a piano player, a singer, anything?
Well, I was a guitar player first.
Mhm.
I started playing guitar in the 6th grade. So I played pretty much kind of seriously, quote unquote, for about 2 or 3 years. And I got into high school, and then it was a wrap, drugs, girls, you know, just trying to be cool. And, the
In
guitar was the
in
corner.
Santa Monica, California.
Santa Monica, where I
Yeah.
grew up.
Hmm.
And, uh, and so right after I graduated, or right before I graduated, I kind of got back into the guitar, like in the 12th grade. And right around the time I heard for the first time Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Hmm.
Earth, Wind, and Fire's record, I think, Open Our Eyes, which opened my eyes in an amazing way. I heard the kalimba on there. So I asked my parents to get me a kalimba for Christmas, and they did, which blew me away.
Were either of them musicians?
My dad used to play reed instruments in Louisiana. I think he played clarinet and alto before he came to Los Angeles. And he might have played when he first got here, but we never talked about it because he was kind of mum about his early days in Louisiana and what he went through in Los Angeles because he was, a brown skinned man, first black man in the Carpenters Union. So he went through a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He went through a lot of crap.
No,
So,
it actually shit.
yeah,
Yeah, and you can say that. You can speak freely on the podcast. Yeah.
so he was kind of quiet about it. He never really talked about it. But yeah, so I I was playing guitar and then, put it down. Then I got back into around the maybe 11th, early 12th grade. So then I got like, oh, I'm going to be the next Al McKay. And then George Benson's Breezin' came out, and I'm going to be the next George Benson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get serious about it. And my second oldest brother was living in San Jose at the time. When I graduated from high school, he said, "Hey man, you want to come up, stay with me for the summer?" And he kind of saw that I needed to get away from, get out of the house and be.
Was the drug and girl thing like? Did you get deep? Did you get lost in that?
I kind of got drug lost in the drug a little bit, drug
Yeah.
stuff a little bit. I wasn't like strung out or anything, but I spent a lot of time getting high,
All right.
and that probably took me away from being real serious about music.
Mm-hmm.
And I got through high school, and it's like, so I had already done a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been doing then. So by the time I graduated, I was kind of like, okay, it's time for something else. And my brother said, well, come stay with us for the summer. And I'm like, yeah, I wanted to get away from my parents, of course. And
Right on schedule.
right on time. I mean, I literally left the day after I graduated. I got in the car, we drove up, and I was there the entire summer.
Who's we? Who'd you drive up with?
My brother and his
Okay,
wife.
got it.
Yeah. And he said, okay, you're going to be here. You got to work.
Yeah.
You got to take care of yourself. You got to learn how to be a responsible human being, basically. Learn how to cook, learn how to clean, handle your business, get a job. You can stay here, no problem, no rent or anything, just earn your keep.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, so I've got some jobs, different jobs that I had for a short time, a couple weeks, and then I got a job that lasted longer. But all the time I was still kind of messing around with the guitar and the kalimba. One day during the summer, his friend, my brother's friend, was a drummer for San Jose State University. He said, hey, I'm having this jam session. Bring your brother over. Tell him to bring his guitar. So my brother Arnold took me over there with my guitar and my kalimba and dropped me off. And he left. He'll come back and get you. And I go in the backyard, and there's all these guys with drums, and they're all playing djembes and congas and Coke bottles and cowbells and shakers. And I'm like, okay. So then I pull out my little acoustic guitar. You can't hear that thing over all these drums. It's like, forget about it. It's like I wasn't even there.
You're taking me back to my childhood experience too, right?
Right.
Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. So
Preach.
okay. So I put that away. I put it back in the case. Like, okay. So I grabbed my kalimba. Well, it's an unamplified kalimba with not even a resonator. It was just a flat bass.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't hear that thing over all those drums. I sat that down and I just sat and watched. And then a few minutes later, I said, let me try something. Let me try this. So I went and sat down. There was a pair of bongos on the ground. There was a chair. I sat down. I put the bongos between my legs. and started playing. And literally the lightning bolt struck. I mean, I can't put it any other way. It was a lightning bolt moment. And it went through me like complete electricity. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I knew I had to do this. There was no turning back. After that, I was it. So as soon as I finished my summer up there, I came back to go to college at Santa Monica College. This is 1977. I started studying music with Rule Beasley, who is John Beasley's dad, was
Wow.
my music teacher. Yeah. So I was studying a little piano, solfege.
Music theory.
And also at the same time, I was thinking, I want to be a musician, a recording engineer, because I love the sound that the records, Earth, Wind and Fire's records has. Oh man, I want to be able to do that. So I started studying electronics, but I stumbled there because I didn't have good math skills. You had to have math skills back then to learn engineering. It was a whole different thing. And now, everybody tells me, oh, you could have just hung out the studio and you'd learn, but I didn't know that.
Right.
So I was studying all that and then taking lessons. I met this guy at the Santa Monica College. He was playing in the dance department, old Jewish guy who lived in Puerto Rico when he was a kid, and he was playing drums and percussion. And I said, can you show me something? And he like 3 or 4 basic rhythms. I was on my way. I got a little cheap drum. I got, I found some other people in Venice. Venice Beach was happening back then. It was a lot of music. So I went down there and hung out and met some teachers there, studied, started playing, going to hang out at the clubs where the salsa music was
And
playing.
were you living back at home at the time with your folks?
Yeah, I was still at
Okay.
home. I was back in Santa Monica with my parents, and
And
working.
they were supportive and encouraging.
Yeah,
Yes
yes,
and no.
I was working. I was,
Well, they ate their words on that, right? Because you've had a beautiful career
I mean,
or having one.
yeah, but at the time I was also working regular jobs,
Yeah.
and still, and I got this job, a really good job, full-time job at a junior high school as head of campus security, benefits, the whole thing.
Wow.
And by then I was already playing a lot. So my friend calls me up and says, hey, we got 5 nights a week. You want to come play in the band? I'm like, yeah. So I went home and I went, and I think I quit the next day. I told my parents, oh, you can't quit. This is crazy. You got a good job. I was like, I got to go do this. So I just started doing it, and started playing around town, playing in salsa clubs, all that stuff. I just had to do this. There was no discussion within my mind. I knew I had to play drums. I knew there was some reason I had to play drums. And my parents, they were not, it was like, well, why are you getting more drums? You got a guitar, you got one drum already. You're making enough noise. Like, at that point, it was like, I'm going to make it out of spite.
Right. Right.
I was not happy. It's like, all that noise and, just stop playing all them drums. It's like, no, I have to do this. So at that point, I was like, I'm going to make this happen because you're telling me not to.
Right.
And so I did. And he lived to see me start to have a career a little bit. I had a band, percussion ensemble, played at Santa Monica College, which was a block away from my house. He came down. He was very ill at the time. So I knew, he didn't have much longer after that, but he got to see me play, and I was kind of the band leader, and I was talking. So I think he,
You
became
got a sense of what was to come
right. Yeah. And my mom,
with your commitment and your passion.
exactly. And my mom became my biggest fan. So, she saw that there was nothing she could do about it. The boy's going to do what he wanted to do. And I did, and so it was just one of those things. I had to do this. I could not do it.
Right.
Because and once I started looking into not only the drum and how to play it, then I want to know the backstory, because I'm
History. Yeah.
I want to know history. I want to know how it got here, who played it, why, how it came to be. And then I understood that it was more than just me wanting to play the drum.
Right. You are part of a long legacy of griots, storytellers.
I have to do this because I have to pass this along.
Yeah.
I cannot not do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm here.
Beautiful.
And here
Beautiful.
I am on the podcast.
That's right. Talking. So let me play another piece of music. This is the title track, The Crossing.
Yeah.
Birnbaum. You co-wrote this with Errol Cooney.
Yeah, Errol Cooney and Natalie,
who's a vocalist on this track, along with drummer Jimmy Brantley.
Adama playing Cora. Carlitos del Puerto. Hey.
What a beautifuful piece.
Thank you. Yeah, that really encapsulates the whole record for me. That's Carlitos del Puerto on bass, Carlitos del Puerto Jr., or Carlos del Puerto Jr., or Carlitos as we call him.
Mm-hmm.
Errol Cooney on all the guitars, Adama Biluru on vocals and Cora, myself playing all the percussion and some keys, and then Jimmy Brantley playing drums. And yeah, he killed it. And this song for me, and kind of, like I said, encapsulates the whole record because it takes all those elements. You have the berimbau, which is a West African instrument, the very first guitar. That's the very first guitar known to man, and there are versions of this instrument all across Southern Africa and West Africa.
Which looks like a bow and arrow, probably about 5 feet tall. I have one. A friend brought from Brazil. There's a gourd, a single string,
Right.
and it's an incredible instrument. What you can do with a single string and a gourd is just magnificent.
Yeah, and you have a coin or
Yes.
stone that you put in your finger to change the pitch, and then there are versions of it where there's no bow, there's no gourd. Your mouth is the resonator. They stick it in the end of their mouth and strike it, and then change the pitch with another stick.
Mm.
So there's versions of this instrument, but essentially it's the very first guitar. So that kind of, we're starting there. And then we have the kora from West Africa, one of my favorite instruments on the planet. I every time I hear it, it just gives me chills, still to this day. And then you have an alfoché rhythm from Brazil, which is a direct descendant of West African drumming traditions, and also the music that is used in candomblé, which is a version of what we call Santeria, or the traditional Yoruba religions from Nigeria, what's known as Nigeria. And then you got the modern element. You got electric bass, you got electric guitars, you got keyboards, and then it's kind of all encapsulating these journeys. I mean, the Caribbean is there because I go to Cuba later in the piece. There's West Africa. There's all over that the record goes, kind of happens in this one record, in this one song on the record. So that's why it ended up being the title track. And that I didn't know that was going to be the title track when I named it The Crossing. But when I sat back and started thinking about what does that mean, then it's like, oh yeah, it's the perfect title for because it's all about those crossings.
Right.
Hence the artwork even on the front cover. Yeah. So yeah, that was a really fun piece of music to do, and the way it just kind of happened in weird little spurts because there were no drums before. I programmed drums, And then there was no vocals. And then a friend of mine said, you know, man, vocals might be really cool on this. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? And I was like, well, who can I get? And then he introduced me to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He connected me with the guy who was, our connection ended up being a friendship. You know, Adama is an amazing musician, not only a kora player, but a master djembe player,
Mm-hmm.
as well as a master balafon player, and plays ngoni, plays so many instruments. He lives between here and Paris. But yeah, all that happened. It just a little weird. It wasn't like a, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It just bits and pieces were done. And then it's like somebody made a suggestion. And then I said, oh, rather than this program stuff, maybe Jimmy could play drums on it because it would be perfect for him. And he just played the exact right thing that was supposed to be played on it. So
Did you
yeah,
send the track to Jimmy? Did you go to his studio? Did he come to you?
I sent the track to Jimmy.
Okay.
And like I said, I already had some program drums, just kind of real basic kick drum,
Mm-hmm.
snare drum stuff. And I said, do your thing,
Mm-hmm.
because Jimmy's such a great musician. He knows where, I just knew he was going to know what to do. Just so perfectly executed. It was like we tracked it together. It was one of those moments.
Mm-hmm.
So those things happen more than I can tell you on this project. It's like it was some real intuitive stuff going on that happened, and the way this whole record just kind of poured out of me, when the pandemic started.
Right.
So
Yeah, the pandemic albums that came out, this, my Surface album, and so many other projects are magnificent because of the deep connection that we all basically were required to share and create without being in the room together.
right.
And I love the camaraderie and the collaborative aspect of this music and the music that I was privileged to make. I've told people in interviews when I'm being interviewed that I am proud of all of us,
Mm-hmm.
for doing it at the level that we did it.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound disjointed. It doesn't sound like 10 different people overdub things.
Right.
It
Yeah.
sounded like we were sitting knee to knee. Your album feels that way as well.
Yeah, man. I telling you that there was so many moments like that where just like the stuff that I would get sent back during those times, I was like, this is
I
amazing.
know.
Yeah. And then of course, as it got better and easier to get together, we did do some sessions with, live music. I did horns, recorded some horns here. I recorded Adama's actually vocal and kora here at my studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was just some real magical moments.
I want to ask you, Kevin, we've been talking about your journey as a creative artist,
Mhm.
as a musician, as somebody who is a storyteller and expresses and continues to carry on the heritage and the profound importance of cultural and musical history. All of these things, beautiful, and it comes through. It's always come through, as long as we've known each other. But it's nice to talk about it. We typically don't talk about it in that depth. But let's talk about business, because you also have been fortunate to have this beautiful career, from everything from television and recording and touring, live performances, many that you can see, you at Red Rock with Kenny Loggins, all these various special memories that have been basically captured, and they're great. So I've gotten to see you in person, but also indirectly, through many of your performances. Of course, the Kennedy Center honors, which I'm very curious, actually, very quickly, how you feeling about that, because it looks like that is just crumbling apart with our new
Yeah, I think
administration.
it's pretty much over for my participation in it
Right.
now, because
I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, 10 years we did that show, which is really an amazing run. And this man who hates music and hates art, who never showed up to the Kennedy Center during the entire time of his presidency, now is sitting on the board of the Kennedy Center and fired everybody. And as a result, a lot of artists are pulling out who collaborated with the Kennedy Center. Uh, and I can't imagine the show will ever be the same. So, yeah, I'm really sad about that because I mean, we had such a ball, and every year was always so different and challenging. And
Mhm.
this last one with the Arturo Sandoval tribute and the Bonnie Raitt tribute, it was really some beautiful moments there. And if it had to be the last one, I'm glad that we got to have those, memories. But yeah, it's a sad situation. But yeah, I've been very fortunate to had a long television career.
Yeah. I,
Thank you.
I want to talk about your the best job ever that you had, which is, I find really perfect to hear you say that because my best job ever was the same as your best job ever. Different TV shows, but music directing for late night talk show and playing guitar and the camaraderie of the band, world class musicians and artists, all of that. I want to talk about that in a moment, your experience and why it was the best for you doing the Tonight Show for all those years. However, let's talk about business mentors. Like, where did you learn to handle your business?
Well, I guess there was a lot of people that I could thank for that. Watching, uh, from when I first started getting calls for stuff, watching the contractors, Ernie Fields being one of them, uh, Gina Zamiti, uh,
Joanne Tominaga later.
yeah, well, Joanne, it almost goes without saying because she's just
Yeah.
everywhere. She's just
Yeah.
the queen. But yeah, that was kind of a little bit later. But Ernie Fields, I would say, probably was one of the very first ones that I would see. And then, obviously, working for a music director,
Mhm.
you have to watch. You have to understand that they are in charge. And, my thing being with a music director started with the Temptations, Gil Askey, who was the music director for that band. Just watching the way he ran everything and what he demanded, and it didn't allow for knuckleheadedness. You don't bring no foolishness to this.
Yeah.
You can't. And then of course, when I started working with Ricky Minor, I would watch him and see how he handled himself amongst all the different egos that he had to deal with.
The artists, the labels, the managers, the musicians, the
Musicians,
copyists.
the lighting people,
Yeah.
the art, the set design,
Catering. Right.
all that, and then come back to us and say, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there waiting, especially on a TV show, you start, musicians are, they always want to start noodling, I don't know, doing little,
Mhm.
hand exercises, guitar licks, whatever. Ricky would just say, hey, you got the gig already. And that meant
Be
shut
quiet.
the fuck up,
Yeah. That's right.
you know, because I'm over here trying to deal with this, the producer who's got a problem with something, and I can't concentrate because you're over here noodling. So you learn to watch and see, okay, you're not the only one on the show. You're the band, and you think you're the greatest because you're the band on the show, but it's not your show. You are there to serve the show. So so be quiet. Sit there. When it's time to play, bring your best. When it's not, sit, be quiet because somebody's working while you're not. Makeup person's trying to talk to the host, or the wardrobe person is trying to talk to the artist representative, blah blah blah. And if you're banging around, they can't hear themselves talk.
Mhm.
So sit there, wait till it's your turn. So I watched that, over the years and started to kind of put that in my the brain about, okay, this is how you handle yourself in this situation. And then also just, you start making money. Don't go crazy. All of us are guilty of doing that. I'm guilty of doing it. You start making money. Oh, I'm the king. I can buy anything I want. And you start buying shit. Then you're like, I didn't need all that. You sit back after a while and start, maybe I should save more.
Yeah.
And starts, understanding you need to save money because this business is full of those times where you're at the top of the mountain and all of a sudden you get to the valley and there ain't nowhere to go but down to get to the other mountain.
Right.
You got to go down there and scuffle through and get to the next mountaintop. So save your bread. take care of your business, show up on time, and showing up on time is something I learned a long time ago. If you show up right on time, you're late.
You're late.
If you show up at 11 o'clock for an 11 o'clock downbeat, you're late.
Right.
What do you mean? I got here at 11 o'clock. No, you got to be ready to play at 11.
Hmm.
So get you behind there at 9:30.
Hmm.
All your stuff's lined up, get the music, make sure you got your notes, get your pencils, get your markers, make sure your lights are working. If you need help, hey, can you get me a stand light because I can't see over here? All those things.
Right. Ask for what you need
Ask for what you need. Thank the people that are helping you
by name.
by name. Meet the people that are working with you, the audio guys, the camera guys, the stage manager. Learn their names and be gracious and thank them when you're done, because
Be a good human. Be a good person.
so all those things go into forwarding your career. And notice all that stuff I was talking about had nothing to do with playing. We're talking about the playing part is a given because you've already done your work and continue to do your work to become a better musician, always. But all that other stuff, it's a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And if you don't put your head on it and think about that and take it into the way that you handle yourself, you're not going to be long for this business. You just won't.
Mhm.
It's just the way it is. So yeah, there was a lot of influences. Ricky Minor being one of the big music directors that I started working with, and then Greg Philin Gaines is another one. I just watch, learn how these guys operate, learn how they deal with there's a lot of competing egos in television,
Yeah. Big ones.
and you have to know how to maneuver in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all really important
And
parts.
I always found it fascinating, kind of ironic, but what we do, we play music.
Right.
And it looks like it's a lot of fun because it is a lot of fun. It's very joyful. But there's a misconception when you're working in television with people who are not the musicians, other crew members, various people on the team and the egos that you're talking about that just think you're just playing. They don't understand it's the tip of the iceberg what they see.
Right.
When we actually play those songs and we do that hour show, it's the showing up at 9:30 in the morning for an 11 o'clock call.
Right.
And everything you did the night before to learn the music and program your keys and synths and samples and things like that, all of the above, and also staying healthy, going to the gym, making sure you spend time with your wife,
Right.
and get out and walk the dog and be healthy on every level.
Right. Be a
Physically,
well-rounded human being.
right. Back to that.
Yeah.
Is there, well, let's talk about why the Tonight Show, because you've done a lot of television and you've had remarkable experiences, as we both have. What made the Tonight Show one of the best jobs that you've ever had?
Well, it really just kind of is one of those jobs that you can just do that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
We worked maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, sometimes 6. You didn't have to be there super early in the morning.
Right.
You were out in the afternoon, like 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
And
Unless you're the music director.
Right. That's a different story. For us, you could go do a gig, go do a session that night.
Right.
You could, you have your weekends. You could go take off for the weekend if you wanted. You could not do live stuff if you didn't feel like it. You could, there was many things you could do with that extra time. You want to be, and I looked forward to playing live with whoever I could whenever I could.
Well, and recording. I mean, you found time to come and record Obrigado with me on my Buddha's Year album.
Right. Yeah.
You
So
worked it around your TV schedule. It was not difficult to do.
no. So there was all that was happening, but obviously the pay situation is one that makes you more financially independent. Makes it you're able to take care of more things. Make sure you set yourself up,
Mhm.
which I did. I I got a business manager who then set me up with all the investment things that I needed to
A
do
plan, a financial plan for retirement.
so that I wouldn't, after this job was over, which we were thinking maybe 5 years, 7 years if we're lucky, was over in 3.5, and it was sudden because they just decided, okay, we're going to change. So here we are. It's like, wow, this is over already, but it was an amazing, amazing experience. We played, I mean, we literally had 1,000 songs in our list of songs to play. So every day would be something different. And we kind of mixed in a lot of cool stuff, like some Latin stuff and some African stuff and old blues and old Ray Charles and James Brown and the Goo Goo Dolls. I mean, everything we did, on a daily basis. And then we'd also back up
The artist.
the artists that would come through sometimes, or some of us would if they needed extra musicians, or they'd come self-contained. So there was this and then of course everybody we knew was coming through to hang to play whoever the artist was, and so it was just a constant musical hang. We had our own rehearsal room. We had a recording studio in that rehearsal room. We could record, and we did a lot of recording for other shows while we were there. That pre-recorded music for, I don't know, countless shows that Ricky was involved in that we could be there in person, but they wanted the music maybe for play-ons and playoffs or theme music or whatever. So, I mean, we had opportunities that, very few musicians get. And obviously financially, it was a real blessing of a job for all of us. And it kind of all set us up for financially for basically the rest of our lives. I never stopped working since then, but it definitely helped put a cushion under me to be able to go forward in other, and pursue other things, making my record for instruments and buying equipment that I could have a decent studio at home and all that stuff. So it was a great job in that way. And just to hang, I mean, all we did was laugh. I mean, it was serious business, yes, but we were cracking on jokes all day and cracking on each other. And, in the dressing room, we were always talking crap and, it was just fun.
Yeah.
Jay was the greatest boss to have. I mean, the guy is super generous, regular working cat, so much so that he made sure that everybody was taken care of when the show ended, which he didn't have to do. They were just going to give us a couple weeks severance and send us on our way. Jay made sure that we all got taken care of after the show was over. He didn't have to do that.
Right.
It's just him. That's just the way it is. He's a working guy. That's why you always see him in jeans and jean shirt and jeans every day.
Right.
Because how he lives. He's a working man. He's a car guy.
Yeah.
And it was just a great situation to be around. He was the coolest boss. And I mean, we had nothing but fun.
Yeah.
When it was serious, we had nothing but fun. So,
well, they say fish stinks from the head down, but it's the other way around too. The one of probably the best tour I was ever on, as far as the joy factor and the laughs and everything, was with Kev Mo and Bonnie Raitt. I was playing in Kevin's band, and like every morning, like I'd get up and I'd go to the gym, and there'd be like 4 other people already on the treadmill, as opposed to being the only one who tries to stay healthy. But also we were appreciated. We were taken care of, and both bands loved each other. And we have both had the opportunity to work with people that aren't that wonderful to work for. The opportunity, it is an opportunity, to figure out how to still make it a positive experience and stay in your lane, for example, but still musically, be broad, but just do your job, keep your head down.
Yeah.
But when you have moments like that, when you've got a great music director and a great host and those things, I can see why nothing could be better than that.
Yeah. And it raised our profiles all as musicians.
Yeah.
People saw us every night.
Yeah.
Obviously our endorsement companies were all very, very happy. We're out there every night being featured, and endorsements, I guess, is one thing we didn't mention, but that you get those opportunities to get an endorsement. You gotta, I always want to make sure people understand this. people get these endorsements and sometimes they don't really appreciate what it means.
Yeah.
Because you're getting free stuff from a company that doesn't have to give you anything. So when you do that, you got to be appreciative of that and not be one of those people who says, I'm going to get some free stuff from them, and then I'm going to go to another company and grab some free stuff from them. Nurture your relationship with that company. And
that's the key word in what you're talking about. And I absolutely agree with you. And it's a pet peeve of mine when I see other peers, their pictures on 3 different, drum companies in a music magazine or something. But basically the key word, relationships. It's artist relationships, and it goes both ways.
Yeah. Make sure you're not taking advantage of people. Honor that and show their equipment whenever you get the opportunity, which I had a lot of opportunities. I started playing the cajon, the box drum on American Idol back in the, early 2000s. And because of that, this people became aware of that drum more. And there was one moment with Catherine McPhee that Teddy Campbell, the drummer, and myself were out front playing cajons. And literally the day after that aired, because it was such a viral moment on YouTube, that's when YouTube was starting to take off, that LP said that they were selling container loads of cajons. Like, people were coming into the stores. What is that drum that guy was playing on American Idol?
Right.
And I've literally heard this from the music store owners at some of the, when I go to the events that Latin Percussion has for their buyers. And they come up and say, man, I'm telling you, the next day people were buying those things like crazy. So, you get an opportunity to do that. And then because they were thankful about me making the cajon a more known instrument, they offered me a signature cajon, which I have with Latin Percussion. I have a Kevin Ricard signature model. And thankfully, it's really well received by percussionists. I can't tell you how many have come up to me, even that people that don't endorse Latin percussion say, hey man, this is my favorite drum. And for me, that's just an honor. And I don't consider myself the best cajon player in the world or anything like that. It was just offered to me as a thank you for their, their ability to increase their market of selling this instrument, which is an ancient instrument. Again, folkloric music comes all the way back into the pop world, and then you start, people want to know about the instrument. That's why I've always been interested in talking about those things. You got to know your history and all that. But anyway, that was part of the business part I didn't talk about, was that endorsement thing.
And the relationship aspect of it, and leading to this really beautiful collaboration where you get to have an artist series of an instrument with your name on it, that you actually were part of the creative aspect of making that. You had, creative input in how to make the best drum that you think it could be.
Yeah. And thankfully a lot of people have thought that as well. So about that.
Well, congratulations on that. It is an honor.
Yeah, it is. It's a real honor. I didn't ask for it. It just kind of came, and I'm really thankful that it did, because it's a good instrument.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things really well.
As we're getting towards the end of our conversation, I want to play possibly my favorite song, or song title on the album, which is Morockish. I don't know if I have a favorite song, but it features co-writer Ibrahim Malouf.
Yeah, Ibrahim Malouf. Yeah.
Thank you. On quarter tone trumpets, along with you on percussion, and Dave Dillon on keyboards.
Yeah.
So let's play a little of that.
love that guy. That he's playing this instrument that's a story in and of itself of how he came to play quarter tone trumpet on this song. Uh, but I met him at a Quincy Jones tribute concert I was playing at, and he was one of Quincy's artists, or is in his management company. And I was telling him I had this song because the Marrakesh, the title is paying honoring Morocco, from where the bass instrument, which is called gimbri, which you're hearing, that's the kind of the bass instrument there, is playing. So that's, a tradition of a musical tradition that is uses quarter tones as well.
Hmm.
And then, rock, I put the rock in there like Marrakesh because I had the cajon kind of playing a groove like a
Hmm.
funk. And then I met Ibrahim at the concert. We played with him on a couple of songs, and I was telling him I had this song, and I was thinking about using like a electronic or muted electronic trumpet. And he goes, I told him what it was, and he said, "Oh, I love, it's Ganawa music, which is what it's based on, Ganawa music from Morocco." And he says, "Oh, I love that music because I have this quarter tone trumpet, and that might be cool." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's the thing. I mean, because the music is all based in quarter tones." And so I sent it to him. He lives in Paris. He sent me something back, and I said, "That's great, but I need something else." And so he said, "Okay." And he came back with the lead line, and then he did a track of four quarter tone trumpets playing, and it just became a whole new song.
Yeah,
And it's one of my favorite tracks on the
it
record.
is. Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same about that song. I lost myself in the entire album.
Mhm.
I disappeared into your journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just yeah, it really pulled me in. But that was one of the moments where I just, of course, the quarter tone trumpet. But it's like, what? Where are we? What is this? I knew I was in Morocco, but I didn't know how or why or with what.
Yeah, yeah. So I use some of the traditional instruments. I use the gimbri. I use the karakab, which are the metal castanets.
Mhm.
I used more other instruments, and I played some keyboards as well. And then Dave DeLong came in and played some as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Ibrahim is just amazing on that track, and
that's
I'm
fantastic.
happy how that one turned out.
Yeah, I'm so glad you made this record, Kevin.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
I'm
saw.
glad I got it out because
Yeah,
it was just like inside, and I had to do
yeah.
it.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
Making an album as an independent artist.
yeah, and also not a genre, quote unquote, genre record.
Right.
It's anything. It's got Afro-Cuban stuff, it's got Afro-Brazilian stuff, it's got African stuff, it's got pop elements, but it's not going to fit easily in anybody's category, and that's always a problem for people for some reason. How
Yeah.
about how about listening to it as a music record
Right.
there, and then see where it takes your brain?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're in this stratified world. Everything's regimented and
Right.
everything.
What are you?
I
I
question a lot over my life.
Before I get to my three closing questions that I ask each of my guests, there's two things I'm curious about with you that I want to ask, and we could talk for an hour on each of these, but just briefly, uh, what do you think has changed the most during your career, and what has remained the same?
Well, let's start with what remains the same. Music remains the same in that people are moved by music. People uh, live their lives to the song, to a particular song or a particular memory that the song brings. There's joy in music. There's sadness in music. There is release in music. There's meditation in music. All those things remain the same. Music affects your brain like no other activity on this planet. That's scientifically shown that more of your brain is used when you are listening to music, playing music, recording music, writing music than any other activity uses your entire brain. So that remains the same. Getting to that, however, is not always easy. And the business that we have navigated for all these years has changed so much that we are constricted by these pathways, and a lot of them are run by corporate people who have no concern about music. And they are now the gatekeepers of what goes and what becomes this and what becomes that. Thankfully, there's still independent pathways. I've taken that route. I'm currently the record is currently available for purchase and streaming on bandcamp.com. And I haven't streamed it on the streaming services yet. But now that I understand, because I'm an owner of the masters, it changes the calculation for me because I own the music that I can stream. So I'm going to start doing that pretty soon on some of the streaming platforms. So there's
keep us all posted on that.
I will, for sure.
Okay.
You can follow me on Instagram, kevinricardpercussion.com, and also kevinricard.music is going to be up very soon.
Great.
It's just my website it'll be, updated regularly. So the pathways to getting that music out to people have changed. The business becomes more challenging for people coming up now. Most of them don't even consider the possibility of a record deal, quote unquote. A lot of people, thankfully, are saying, hey, I'm just going to guerrilla this thing into existence. And thank God that that's still happening, because a lot of good music would be lost and by the wayside if people didn't say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to make this record. I don't care how it gets, I'm going to get it out. I got to get it out. And that is, that's the part that's changed. There's just less pathways. But at the same time, as it constricts, there's all these little side openings that, as it constricts down to this, all these little leaks come out on the side. So I'm going to go this way, and I can still make a record and maybe make a living. Unfortunately, the streaming companies don't pay the artists because most of the artists don't own their material. So the record companies can enter into these deals where they're just passing money between each other and get screwed in the process. So here's a check for $1,100 for your triple platinum hit.
Right.
Go away.
Go away.
And be happy. That's what you got. So yeah, that's the difference. Hopefully that's.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. My 3 closing questions that I ask each of my guests. The first one is, since this show's called Making It, what does making it mean to you both personally and professionally?
Making it personally is just being able to live a healthy life, provide for my family, be a good person, take care of yourself, your body, your living situation, the people around you. That's, in terms of personally, that's kind of making it. Now, professionally, obviously, making it is being able to make a living doing this. And I'm blessed that I've been able to do this for like 47 years or 48 years, something like that. I mean, and most of that time, probably 40 plus of that, just entirely off of music. I don't take that lightly. It's a blessing that I've been able to make a living and not have to do anything else and pay my bills and my mortgage and blah, 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 and all that stuff that goes with the concept of, being a productive member of society, playing music, where people to say, why don't you get a real job? Well, this is a real job. I got a pension, I got, 401k, all that stuff. But that's only because of persistence and determination to stay in this business, keep my head down and be good at what I do, show up, give your best, and then go home when you're done. And don't think that you're the be all and end all. Just be a person in this business that's contributing, and bring your artistry and your music and share as much of that as you can with the rest of the world. And those things together kind of, I guess that's a good way to say you made it, So yeah, I hope that explains that.
Yeah, it certainly does. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Okay, get yourself ready, musically, technically, get your technical skills together, and always continue to work on them. When you're working, be a good person, handle your business, show up on time, make sure you have what you need, make sure your instruments work, you know, um, so that you don't have people saying, "Oh man, the guy can play, but his guitar fell apart while we, in the middle of the set," that kind of thing. The third part is once you are starting to make a way in this business, save your bread, because there's not always going to be up on the top of the mountain. It's just impossible. It's not possible. You can maybe get with a big band and strike it rich, and that's great. Save your money, because it ain't always going to be like that, and that way you'll have something to look, so you don't just fall into a deep hole and that you can never come out of. So I think those three are kind of good.
Yeah, invaluable tips. Thanks, Kevin. My final question is, at this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Probably just keep doing what you're doing, because if I had let somebody else dissuade me from, if I let my parents say, "Oh, you shouldn't quit that job," I would have had worked for the Santa Monica Unified School District and probably retired at, a few years ago with a nice pension and all that stuff. But it wouldn't have been anywhere near as fun. It would have been drudgery for me.
Yeah.
It would have just been a job. And I can't tell you how much fun I've had in this business. I've seen parts of the world that people will never see. I've experienced musical moments, like serendipitous musical moments that just I couldn't have dreamed of if I, in my wildest dreams. So yeah, I mean, this just is a dream to be able to do this, and to be able to live by this and make a living and provide for my family. So I would say, I'd probably say save more of your money. That's about it. Save more of your money, but keep doing what you're doing, because I was already, when I started out, I wanted to know. I wanted to know the history. I wanted to know the technique. I wanted to know how that became this. How come we have what's called rock and roll? Well, look at back. There's the blues. There's jazz. There's shouts. There's field hollers. All that stuff. So I was always interested in that stuff, and continue to be. I'm always reading, listening to audiobooks, reading, and then working on my craft. Those two things. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, kid. Don't stop. Don't let
Great
nobody
advice.
stop.
Yes, sir. It's been an absolute joy to spend this time with you, Kevin. Do you have any closing thoughts, anything you want to add?
Buy my record.
Yes.
Buy The Crossing on bandcamp.com.
What Kevin said. Yes.
And also just, find joy wherever you can. Nature is a really important part of me finding joy. Stick your head in nature and get your look at the ocean, look at the rivers, look at a lake. That is also inspiration for creating music. So yeah, try and find those inspirational moments wherever you can. And also, it's let that flow into you and also come out of you when you're creating music, if that's your passion. So yeah, I would say those are my closing arguments or closing statements. I rest my case.
I rest my case. The jury is dismissed. Everybody go get Kevin's album, go get mine, the Surface album, and streaming, good or bad, for what it's worth, go subscribe to all of our channels and social medias, because that makes a big difference for any artist. So if you enjoyed this conversation, go follow Kevin, Ricard, follow me, share and subscribe to this show, and everybody stay safe and stay inspired. We'll see you all next week. Thank you, Kevin.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.